Hi, Alan Stratton from Woodturns. For this project, let's turn this small bowl out of mesquite. Now, as with most projects, even a bowl is an exercise in mounting, and that is the same with this. Started with green wood, ended up with a nice dry bowl. But it did take a little while to do it. Actually, more in terms of elapsed time than actual working time. But still, we'll get into that in this project, so let's turn this bowl. This wood is mesquite from the Phoenix, Arizona area. It is fairly freshly harvested. Since I have one side reasonably flat, that side is pressed against the closed jaws of a chuck with live center pressure. I use this initial mounting technique regularly. Many others would use a worm screw. However, to use a screw, I would have to locate the center and drill a perfectly sized hole exactly at the same depth as the length of the screw. The risks are that the threads strip out an incorrect hole depth, especially with thinner blocks. Plus, the center location is locked in, never to be adjusted. Either way, live center pressure is essential for safety and security. I also do not spend much effort to bandsaw the wood chunk round. My lathe has plenty of capacity, and for me, less time to rough round on the lathe than to saw it on the bandsaw. Plus, I can still adjust the center if I see issues that need to be addressed or exploited. Often, I do have to drill a hole through soft sapwood for the live center. However, this mesquite is tough, and I can skip this step. I am roughing with my bowl gouge at a speed just below the heavy vibration point. Yes, initially I'm cutting a lot of air, but I'm used to that now. Boy, this mesquite is hard. Once roundness is nearly established, I cut a tenon with a spindle gouge and refine it with my skew. The exterior profile is not ready yet. There is still bark to remove. I decide to add another step to ensure a better mount. Now to reverse the mount using that tenon into the chuck jaws. I flatten the top with my bowl gouge to see what my top edge will be. Then cut a sacrificial mortise into the top with a spindle gouge and refine the corner with a skew. I do not do this step with all turnings, but it seemed like a good idea for this tough, hard mesquite, and does not take that long. The wood is again reversed into that mortise with an expansion mount. There's plenty of wood diameter to take the pressure, and mesquite is tough. Again, with the bowl gouge, I can refine the exterior, removing the remaining bark and sapwood. Then cut a new tenon. From Mike Mahoney, I learned also to cut another indentation that looks much like a larger tenon. However, the purpose of this indentation is to guide my eye for the exterior curve. Otherwise, I would sight on the tenon and risk hollowing too deep later. I do hate to turn funnels. The mesquite seems hard and stable. I use a shear cut to refine the surface. Reversed once again with the new tenon, I can hollow with the bowl gouge. At first, I keep the live center in place for some heavy cuts, then take it away for more gentle hollowing. This mesquite is looking good. With the rough bowl complete, I have sealed the rim with Bowl Saver from Craft Supplies. Other times I use Titebond 2 as a sealer. They both seem to work well. After the sealer is dried, I weigh the bowl and record the weight and date. Periodically, I weigh it again. When it stops losing weight, the diet is successful and it is ready to turn again. The bowl only lost about 5% by weight. The mesquite must have been drier than I thought. Plus, mesquite seems to have a low moisture content anyway. Shrinkage and warping was minimal. The difference is only about 1/8 of an inch. However, it still has to wait for me to get around to turn it again. Well, I found my round to it. The chuck jaws are closed. Life center pressure will hold it securely using the original life center divot. Any damage to the inside will be removed when I continue hollowing. I sharpened my bowl gouge to have another go at the bowl. Plus, it is definitely dry now and very hard. The first task is to trim the tenon with a spindle gouge and skew, then on to trimming the bowl round again using a shear cut. This wood is hard. I alternate with scrapers. I want a slight flare at the rim to signal to hands that the top is approaching. I did not remove very much wood. The scrapers help to remove bumps in this hard wood. Now to continue hollowing the bowl. With the minimal distortion, this will go easier than if there were significant warpage. Back to the bowl gouge. As I work down the sides and the wood is thinner, I notice a harmonic pattern. Turning up the lathe speed and reducing tool pressure helps. With the upper sides near target, the bottom is still too thick. It is becoming more difficult to get a smooth cut at the bottom. I switch to a heavy bowl scraper. This works for me better than a bottom feeder gouge grind. I also find it helpful to mark bumps with a pencil to get me to target the right area. With that finished, I sanded, starting with 80 grit. I do not mind confessing to using 80 grit. Recently at a club demo, the demonstrator bragged that his cuts were so good he could start with 180 grit. While he had no tear out, it seemed that there were still facets in the wood. Good sanding removes these quickly and does not take long if I start right. Starting right means sand first with coarse grit. This time, I apply wipe-on poly while still mounted to the lathe. After thoroughly measuring the bottom to assess the remaining wood, the wood is mounted on coal jaws. I prefer these to a jam chuck. A faceplate actually is my second choice. Essentially, I am removing the old tenon and then making the bottom concave. Then sand and sign before applying wipe-on poly again. After it dries, I will apply another coat and maybe buff it. Well, this bowl has been a long time coming, but it is pretty and with fantastic grain. Well worth the wait. I took a detour with this bowl, which are sometimes necessary. This time the detour was indicated by the hard wood. Again, well worth it. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my website because my notifications are more reliable than YouTube's. Please tell your friends about my weekly videos. I appreciate your comments and questions. Please wear your full face shield whenever the lathe is running. Are you wearing it? I'll put the reason why I do in the description.